This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
I'm going to call the July 16th meeting of the Bees Committee to order. And the first thing I'm going to do, as I am remote with a slightly spotty internet connection, just in case, pass the chairmanship of the meeting over to Owen. If everybody, do we need to vote on that, or can I just do it?
I don't think so. I think you as the chair could just.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to pass the chairmanship of the meeting over to Owen and go from there.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for tolerating some of the technological glitches. So as Sean had already mentioned, we're here for the Bees Committee. We're a little late. It's 5:44 p.m. We'll open up the meeting first with public speak. If there's members of the public here to speak on any topics other than items on the agenda, or if you would like to comment on any items on the agenda, feel free to do so now with a show of hands. And I'm also, let me just switch back over virtually here too. I don't see any hands up online, and we do have a member of the public here. So seeing no requests for public speak, we can move on to the approval of minutes. We have minutes. Let me just pull those up. Give me a moment. We have minutes from our last meeting, which was June 3rd. Has everyone here had a chance to review those? Yes. Okay, great. Are there any, before we take a motion to approve, are there any comments, questions, or edits? Okay, great. I'll take a motion to approve those minutes.
Move to approve the minutes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Sean, a second from Jenny. Since technically we're a remote, we'll just do a roll call vote. Hal, aye. Jenny, aye. Sean,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
and I'm also an aye. I was there for a part of the meeting. So minutes are approved for June 3rd. Moving on, we have an item here to discuss a potential plant swap in conjunction or collaboration with the Bees Committee. Councilor Tamara Smith is very interested in this, but there's actually a conflict. She's in the building, but at another meeting, and I spoke with her earlier, and there's no urgency that matters, so we can move on. And we'll discuss that at a further time. Cultural chaos after action report. Is there someone here to speak to that?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of talk through it a little bit, although I don't have my notes up. We did talk to quite a few people. We have, I believe, Jenny, actually, do you want to talk through this? Do you have notes?
I don't have notes, but I'm happy to talk. I think it was very successful. We have, I don't recall the exact number, but somewhere above 40 signups from the 5 hours that we were at the tent. We had a lot of great conversations and a couple of very promising leads from some of those conversations around members of the public who are subject matter experts who are interested in getting involved, and a couple of folks, maybe just one person, who was interested in learning more about the vacancy on the committee. So I have gone ahead and added those people to our mailing list sign up. They haven't been reached out to. But one of the questions that I have is, how do we want to move ahead with following up with the folks who have interest and then the general public? I'm sure Sean has thoughts on that as well. But yeah, I thought it was great. It was my first cultural chaos, so it was a really wonderful way to see what it's all about. And I think we were really well prepared.
Sean, for the purpose of transparency and engagement, do you see, especially with a mailing list, do you think that there's any prudence in sending out like basically the minutes of the prior meeting, maybe the video link, as well as like maybe a brief message about any events or anything like that going forward to foster engagement? And also we do have a vacancy, so that might also potentially recruit another member. Or
Yeah, I've been kind of waiting to really kickstart the, sort of the newsletter until we have, an event on board, which we've been trying to get the Manhan cleanup ready to go. I know we've been telling people we weren't going to use this particular mailing list for the volunteer list, but I figured as part of the first email we send out, we could create a volunteer, a separate volunteer email list and begin to offer to let people sign themselves up for that, along with a date for the, when we figure out the first Manhan event. But I do think that, yes, a kind of a monthly newsletter sort of situation where we could all, the minutes is a good idea, the video link is a good idea, compilation of a few, not too many links for people of interest, and then obviously any events that we're planning during the upcoming month would be sort of the target I would have for using the list, and the Facebook page, which Jamie will be able to talk to. And I know we haven't used that either yet, but it's all kind of kit and caboodle of once we get things to communicate to people, we can use those avenues to communicate them.
Any other questions or comments about the cultural chaos report? And thanks. I mean, I'm sorry, I was working, but sounds like it was some great engagement going on there.
I was there, and I underscore what Jenny and Sean said, and so it was good.
Great.
Hal, I do have to tell you that I believe I don't remember Dylan from the Planning Commission got a lot more people to get a firm handshake on the spinning wheel than you did. About that.
Well, we did run out of candy, but we can address that later.
Jamie, anything on this item?
No, I was just there for the first hour. I just want to appreciate Cassie for helping put it all together. And Connie Dawson from the Energy Committee was very vivacious in drawing people into the tent and stuff like that as well. So special shout out to her for being very engaged with the community walking by.
Great.
100% agreed.
I have a question.
Sure.
Just thinking about for next year, if you all want to do it, and maybe this is way too early, but did you all feel like it was okay to share a booth? Would you want your own booth in the future? Maybe if things have expanded more, you would want your own booth in the future. I thought it was a good mix of energy advisory and bees. Thinking about the climate action plan, they're gonna you guys are named as partners in a lot of those aspects. We can talk about that later. But energy advisory is kind of overseeing the climate action plan too in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of potential good overlap in that way. But I don't know if y'all thought it was too cramped or if it was too confusing for folks or what, but something to think about, I guess.
I don't feel it was cramped, and I thought sharing a booth was great.
Certainly appreciated being able to ride the logistical coattails of the planning department.
Yep, and that should be in the future still. You'd need a staff person. In theory, there will be a new agent. There will be a sustainability coordinator person in the future. So someone will be there to help with that next year. I mean, I guess I can't see the future, but there should be someone there who can help you. But that I think is the best way to do it. Y'all can reach out to them yourselves and get a booth, but because there was this payment piece to it this year, which I don't know that will exist next year. That's the only thing I would think is you don't need the staff person, but we had access to all the tables and chairs and sample.
Yeah, access to the tent and tables was what was key.
Sean.
Yeah, I was so Cassie, are you going to be leaving a run book or a playbook for cultural chaos for the planning committee, or for the planning department? Thank you.
I'm crafting an exit memo that I'll send to all of you, and I can include that in there. It's just how to do events. I guess I'll do more broadly than that, because it was only funny this year in that there was this payment piece that the city tables also had to pay, which I don't know if they'll do that again next year, or it might be that was not worth it. It's silly. We don't need to do that. The city's kind of paying itself. But I get why they were trying to do that also, to their credit. Just don't know if that's what they'll do next year. So if that piece is out of it, then it's going to be even easier to sign up. Someone just needs to do the form.
Yeah,
I mean, an exit memo for sure.
Okay. So we should probably have our own sort of playbook, and I was also going to talk a little bit about playbooks when it comes to other event stuff, doing the invasive removals. So we should have a playbook and start trying to remember timelines and to communicate with the planning board that we might want to share a tent with them. I think it's likely we will, You know, if somehow we go to the moon with the amount of stuff that we're doing, we might, you know, would be the only scenario I would see where we might want to split out, but I don't think we're going to go that far that fast. So it sounds like a great idea. And, you know, obviously when somebody attempts and fails to fill Cassie's shoes, we should start communicating with them early about what, you know, about that sort of thing.
So Sean, maybe a folder on the Google Drive with kind of a general playbook for events, and then separate breakouts relevant.
Just use headers in the same document, but yeah, like checklists for different types events and event types.
Great. Anyone else on that item?
And I don't know, Hal, if you're taking notes about like who's volunteering to do what, but I can get that started as a action item for next time.
That would be great, Sean.
Okay, moving on and segueing very nicely, volunteer events, Manhattan DPW approval. Next step is this. Who's speaking to this?
I can speak to this. I've been doing a lot of the coordination. Okay, so I went to the Manhattan committee meeting. I talked to the DPW. DPW said that they will go with whatever the Manhattan committee says. Manhattan committee said, yes, they heartily approve of us doing invasive removals on the Manhattan, so we are clear to do that. I told them as part of that agreement that we would both coordinate with them and with Conservation Commission for any site planning, which means, you know, part of that checklist that I was kind of talking about that we'll need to do is reach out ahead of time, pick a site, clear the site with the Conservation Commission, which hopefully we can do without going through a Conservation Commission meeting. Hope we can just go through a liaison or something, but I don't know who that's going to be if Cassie's not there. So, but yeah, and then so we need to talk to those two people. DPW has said that we can use a parking space at one of the schools for drying the invasive weeds for a couple of weeks, and then take them to a dumpster at City Hall. So we have official written permission for that from DPW. I was trying to both DPW and probably Parks Department. DPW suggested I talk to the Parks Department about potentially getting a little bit of help transporting bags to the parking lot and then to the dumpster, because they're separate spots. And of the people that with vehicles that I know of so far, the only person who has one that could do it all in one go is probably Owen. The rest of us have very small vehicles, and Owen has been more time constrained than a lot of the rest of us, so I don't know that we want to rely on him. I'm hoping I can convince Parks Department it's only like 10 or 15 minutes out of somebody's day, but it doesn't seem like that's likely. So, you know, we'll probably be doing some multiple walking trips, but, you know, worst case scenario, once they're dry enough, I'll just on my way to coffee or something, grab a couple of bags and take them over and dump them in. Oh, but DPW also wanted to know when we were doing it in case they get questions, so that they can be like, yes, it was a, you know, Bees Committee invasive removal, and they're just waiting, you know, maybe we can come up with a sign or something to laminate and drop on top of the bags or something.
Yeah, and Sean, obviously, anytime you're doing an event, if I'm available, happy to.
Oh, I know. I mean, I'm not complaining that you're time constrained. It's just a fact.
It is a fact.
So,
any questions, comments?
If I can, I'd add to that just that for the Conservation Commission's part of it, what
Yep.
they would need to do, if you can choose locations that are outside of, what you can do is reach out to the agent. There will be a new agent. You can reach out to them, and we did, and I say that because we did interviews like yesterday. Like we're gonna have,
Perfect.
but you would reach out to them and they would confirm whether or not it was even within an area that's jurisdictional of the commission. I think a lot of the places probably would be outside of the jurisdiction of the commission. You don't have anything with them. But yeah.
Oh, sorry. Initially, I was thinking we would mostly stick for those just to keep things as simple as possible. But like, we should cross-check to make sure it is outside jurisdiction as expected.
That's not a recommendation. But then also in terms of like, okay, then what's the path after that? Is that the DPW, this would be in the city's right of way. Fairly certain the entire bike path is. And so the city has a bundled order of conditions for routine maintenance, and they do the mowing related to that already. And so pulling the invasives from that corridor of the right of way, I would assume would be covered under the bundled order. And so that would just be like kind of getting a letter to the commission and being like, hey, this is the project that the new latest project under the bundled order that's happening. And then you would be covered by that order of conditions. Just familiarize yourself with those conditions, which would be quite simple in this instance, the ones that would apply. And it wouldn't be super intense as far as I can tell. So that would be the path, but you want to partner with DPW on that if it is within wetlands, but the agent will be able to help you and guide you.
Okay, cool. And I assume at least for startsies, we'll need to do like a letter per event, you know, sort of thing, or?
I think it would be good, just because then it would be helpful for the commission to have a record of like, these activities have happened, or you could establish like, we're gonna do this in these locations every year going forward. And if we change, you know, and then the commission could approve that. And then
So,
Yeah.
my sort of long-term thought process about this is send individual letters for the first couple events, you know, assuming we get 1 or 2 in with the year remaining, then in the, you know, early spring or late winter of next year, maybe come up with a parcel of ones that we're planning on hitting, depending on what's worst, and send like a blanket thing. And then maybe at some point at the end of next year, starting the year after that, maybe we actually start to look into trying to get into some of the places that are, because a lot of the places I'd love to hit in the long term are actually very near wetlands, because that's where some of the worst invasives are. But obviously, we're going to take this at a deliberate pace and make sure everybody's happy and we're getting stuff done and we're getting volunteers. Like, you know, it's my policy. If despite all the enthusiasm, if nobody shows up, this might not work out.
Yeah.
To Sean's point about hitting repeated spots, I also think that would be really prudent, because most, if not all, of the invasives that we would be targeting will need annual removal and maintenance for 2 to 3 to 5 years, optimistically. So to my mind, it makes sense to kind of pick a few spots that we are able to keep an eye on. And relatedly, I think something that we might want to put some thought into at some point is figuring out how to source and perhaps fund native plants to put into the removal spaces so that they can hopefully establish. I think that's maybe the piece that understandably might be the hardest to figure out in all of this. And I don't have concrete suggestions right now, but I want to make sure that we work that into the process so that these have a chance of naturalizing with native populations.
That was my next question about, coordinating like, what is there, if there's permissions or logistics about planting, like if we want to either coordinate across the community or with some sort of retail or something, like, or one of us took on basically growing plugs and said, you know, we're going to do invasive removal and plug planting. Is that something that like, do we need permission to plant, or?
For the commission, what they're concerned with is things that fall within the definition of alteration, which is ground disturbance. So if you needed to like dig out a big, like a really significant enough space to plant a thing, maybe. But if you're just planting things, no, you don't need a permit to plant things. You dredge, fill, or alter, which is alteration only includes removal of vegetation. I'm assuming all of this would pretty much be in the buffer zone. It wouldn't be within BVW, like straight up wetlands. Technically, I think you would maybe need a permit to plant in straight up wetlands, but they're all in natives. Like, you're not trying to plant something crazy, so that seems less likely.
Sean, Hal, sorry.
That's okay. But one thing to add, which I think just, you know, underscores what everybody has been saying, if we start out in non-jurisdictional areas and are attentive to doing what we're talking about and documenting what we do, photos are helpful. Then as we might wish to move into buffer areas or jurisdictional areas, then we've got a body of work to present to the Conservation Commission. This is what we've done. This is what it looks like before, after, continuing. And that's that addresses in advance the sort of questions I would expect the Conservation Commission would ask. So just, everybody's discussion of the logical progression makes perfect sense. And if we document, then we are essentially doing our homework in advance for moving into other more jurisdictional areas.
That's a really good point.
So maybe, at some point we can plan a site visit and identify some areas, like a few strategic areas for removal. Maybe we'll talk about a schedule, and maybe as a future agenda item, also identify, say, like a list of some easy natives that we could use as replacement. Like, it doesn't have to be too exhaustive. Just Sean.
So couple of thoughts. Yeah, actually, not just a site visit. I think what we should actually probably try and do, preferably in the next couple of weeks, and maybe we can just vote on, we are going to do this and find a time together. Hopefully, maybe, you know, if we want to do that instead of just like trying to pick a time tonight, maybe we pick a time tonight. But like walk a non-trivial portion of the Manhan, like maybe like maybe Three Ferry down, you know, toward, you know, down towards that road, what, South Road or something. I don't know southern Easthampton very well.
Mhm.
And then you know, note sites there that like are probably outside of Conservation Commission jurisdiction, and also that are intensive with things that we recognize as invasives off the list that Jenny has provided us, which is really nice. And then we can have that list ready to go. In terms, you know, plants is a good idea. If y'all don't mind, I still got tons of stuff that needs editing in my yard. So like, you know, I think we should probably have a little bit of a, I think we're okay to sort of like basically have people promise, like have a, you know, maybe we just have a list of promises that says like, I don't use pesticides. I know the provenance of this plant. It came out of my yard, and, you know, it came off of a plant that previously, you know, I bought from this, you know, garden center that we know does organics or something like that, as an early sourcing method, mostly because I would actually like to continue to use stuff that comes out of, that gets edited out of my yard. But you know, I'll take other people's advice on that for sure. And then the last thing that I was thinking about was, as part of the checklist for events, I do think we should try and identify somebody who is willing to do more photography than invasive removal. And like, I literally think we should just designate somebody each time. And that might actually make it a little bit more accessible too, because if somebody like doesn't want to be kneeling or bent over the entire time or can't physically do the work, we can still say, hey, we need somebody to come out, take good pictures, send us the pictures for documentation, because we need to document all of this for other stuff.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I really love the idea of documenting. I mean, obviously, just for legal reasons. I mean, that might be like a little harsh of a word, but I think also be really wonderful over a period of time to show how we're transforming the space. If there's a quorum of us doing a site visit, we'll probably have to list it as a meeting, Sean, which is actually kind of neat because we can get like maybe members of the public who want to come out and do this with us. I don't know, you know, just throwing this out there. Like if you don't think the next meeting necessarily needs to be too agenda intensive, you could consider doing that for our next meeting and maybe then discuss a few agenda items. But I would just throw that out there. We could do both too, because you'd probably need to list as a public meeting if the quorum's there. Just FYI.
Okay. Yep, that's fine. Although, you know, I would hope if we do that we maybe also continue to consider having like a slightly elevated tempo of meetings for that period of time. Like, I wouldn't want to do, well, it would be fine if we did that and that's our entire August meeting or whatever. I would kind of prefer not to, but I get it if that's what other folks want to do. And then, yeah. And then a couple of other thoughts I had. One, we should potentially think about like getting signs that we can put where we do invasive removal, so that we can say like, you know, invasives removed by Easthampton bees, and have a link to the mailing list or whatever. And I also think, as well as the pictures and after action kind of being ready for giving to the Conservation Committee, documentation for other people, legal, CYA reasons, whatever. Also, that can go in the newsletter, so that we can give people a little bit of like, here's what we're doing. You know, here's our techniques. Here's what we did. You know, here's what we did right here. Here's what you could do at home, or you can come join us if you want to learn how.
That sounds great. Yep. Jamie, do you have any comments? I just want to make sure that I'm circling back to you.
No, I appreciate that. No, nothing at this time. Thank you, though.
Okay. So, I mean, I'd leave it, Sean, I'd leave it up to you in the group. I just wanted to throw that out there. I mean, I'm not averse to 2 meetings in August. I just want to be respectful of summer schedules and whatever the group and you feel is most prudent. I mean, one option is you could say we're going to do a site visit from X to X, and then we'll reconvene and meet, you know, in a room or hybrid somewhere. We'll jump on our phones and probably do, might at that point be best to just do a full hybrid meeting to discuss agenda items or we could do a remote. I mean, I guess if we have a laptop, we could also do a remote meeting somewhere wherever we are. If we have internet access, like Millside Park, just throwing a few thoughts out there too.
That the latter stuff. I mean, I like where your head's at. I think that sounds like a bit much for one day, for me. But I would happily go along with it if other folks disagree, so we can like make a decision about that. Yeah, and I would even consider, like, you know, maybe target a site visit in like the last week of July, and then another regular agended sitting meeting like first week of August ish. Again, obviously want to be respectful of people's schedules, not trying to push people too hard. As noted in our last meeting, we are attempting to get an invasive removal event done by September. So, and even that's going to be like, yeah, that will be largely for our practice, because at that point, the only real effect we're going to have on most anything is the bittersweet at this point, because everything else has already gone to seed and blah blah blah. But still, yeah, I'm rambling at this point, so I'll shut up.
So maybe why don't I go around the table then and get people's thoughts on that? Hal, what are your thoughts about how to kind of manage this proposal in terms of a site visit? Does it replace a meeting? Is it in addition to a meeting?
I don't have clear thoughts on replacing a meeting versus a supplement to a meeting. That works. I'm looking at my calendar, and I'm a student pilot. I guard my weekends very jealously with that. But Saturday, the 3rd of August, I know I wouldn't be flying. So I would just throw that out there as a date that I could almost certainly participate in.
Site.
Yes. And I'm assuming, I have the luxury of being retired, so my schedule is open. That's not true of everybody. So, I point out that that's a Saturday, and I'm just about positive I could participate.
Jenny?
I'm happy to go either way. I think if we were to combine them, I would just suggest doing the inside portion first, so that we're not all itchy and scratched and filthy by the end.
Yep,
I
that's
think
good.
that could actually be really fun if we have a short agenda and then we head out.
Mhm.
I'm not averse to that. I'm also absolutely available to do 2 meetings, and I'm happy to keep the ball rolling. My schedule is also pretty flexible. I will be out of town for a week or so in August, but I'm happy to do almost any weeknight and almost any weekend otherwise.
Sean?
Yeah, I love Jenny's point about doing the inside first and then going outside. So totally on board with that. I'm currently unemployed, so I'm very flexible on times and places. And yeah, weekends, weeknights, definitely both good. If we could get a quorum, which we probably can't, I could do during the day. So yeah, just very, very flexible. Happy to do whatever works for everybody else.
Jamie?
Yeah, I'm largely flexible as well. I mean, I do have some other commitments and things that eat up specific times, but I also like Jenny's idea of the in person and head out. I think that's always a fun thing to do, something like that. So I'm okay with whatever. I'll do my best to make it to whatever we got.
Sean, what do you feel about some sort of what's that thing called? Yes, thank you. I was gonna say a quiz, but I want to answer any questions. Yeah, what do you think about some sort of poll for this?
Yeah, I could well, I didn't like any of the polling solutions we had. Unless you have another one we could try. Unless you want to do like a doodle, if you're talking about like a doodle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can put together a doodle.
My recommendation, do if you want here.
Yes.
Not to interject, is do a doodle poll for the site visit and then for the meeting, and then if you don't have a quorum, people go in a site visit anyways, and it's not meeting.
Right.
That's fine.
Mhm.
And then my only other comment, you had mentioned about trying to do if you do the site visit, it needs to, I think I would not try to provide any hybrid or remote option, just because I think if you start with a remote option, you need to continue it into the rest of the meeting.
Okay.
And so it needs to be consistent what's available. So like folks wouldn't join virtually expecting to be able to like come along on someone's phone to see you all do the site, the walk. That's like a weird little technical piece. So
Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
I don't think we should mess around with like trying to offer any kind of hybrid for that for the site visit stuff, because I mean, we struggled a bit with the in-office technology and my inability to like figure out how to attach the meeting to the agenda. So I think that should just be in person only for once. And that's me saying that. You know how much I'm
Yeah.
remote.
Okay, so we'll do a poll then. Does that sound reasonable?
Sounds great. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on that?
One other random question. I
Yeah.
might be getting ahead of myself. Do y'all plan to use herbicides at any point for some of the invasives that you need them? Like, I know knotweed is like whack and you need to use it. I don't know. I've heard that you need to use herbicide for that. That might be the antithesis of this whole group. So that's super valid.
Yeah.
I only ask because the Concom will want to know if when you do for in those areas, if you're proposing to use anything. They have allowed it such things in the past, but it needs to be proven to be something that's
And
appropriate.
I would propose that we start not using herbicides, that we identify a possible need and justify and document as we go along, and then cross that bridge when we've got that basis in experience and knowledge.
I would also have some questions about licensed pesticide applicators.
Yes.
Which I certainly am not, so.
Yeah.
Or at least prohibit us.
And I think people could potentially look owly even if we're using over-the-counter products like Roundup, you know, so we need to do homework on this. So let's not go there this evening.
Sean? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna point out, so Jenny did provide us with a pretty extensive document list of the way in which we tend to do the removal at this point. It is purely manual. Jenny, you can speak to it if you want to, but like the manual removal is not the most effective way for some of these plants as we're doing it, but also our intention is not purely efficacy. Our intention is also education, outreach, community events. And the fact that you can make, to Jenny's point of like hitting the same sites over and over again, you can actually make a difference over time by doing this the long way, especially given enough hands willing to pull. I do think that at some point, some of the stuff that is more difficult to knock back without a little bit of help, we should consider the help. And we can at that point go through all the reasons that is reasonable. And try and figure out the legal stuff, because like I believe from what Jenny's told me, I believe that even glyphosate, which is Roundup, is still at scale, or as any part of organization is going to require licensing or something.
Would not be surprised at that.
Yeah, even though I thought we'd be able to paint, clip and paint without it, because clip and paint is like real low blast zone. Apparently I'm wrong. So cool.
Okay.
Agree with Sean. I think just to elaborate on the document that I pulled together, it absolutely focuses on mechanical removal. I think there's a couple that flag like this is actually way more effective if you are able to use a chemical control, but I am not anticipating that will be on our horizon. And it may well end up that we find that we can have a significant impact on like specific plants. Like I think garlic mustard, we could totally hit. So it'll be interesting to see how this evolves over time. And if we end up focusing on certain sites because we think we can be more effective or what have you, or if this ends up in like a map of things that we can do and things that we would need to find more robust control mechanisms. And that document is up on our Google Drive if folks want to take a look at it. It's 6 or 7 of the invasive plants that we mentioned at the last meeting.
And can I ask a question for my education and Ludditeness? How do I get to the Google Drive?
There's an email floating around on
Yeah,
this
I think
somewhere.
we just sent it again, Cal, the link, because it was an email link to get in there.
There was, so I probably just filed
You
that.
might still have it. You might just be able to search Bees Google Drive and then something will come up.
I-
Yeah,
Okay,
we can at the end, you and I can look at it real quick.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a product of my age.
Sean?
I was going to say a couple of things. I mean, first, I don't know if we want to pull that up and look at it this evening, just based on what we're doing, but I do highly, highly, highly recommend anybody that is intending to participate in the invasive removals do review that, because we should, we actually probably want to vote on that as being the thing that, our guiding document on this. And I would like people to read it, please. We have sent it out a couple of times to the group. I will send it again. Hal, I can also right now send you a link to the shared drive if you have your email up.
I don't at the moment,
Yeah,
so at your convenience, and I'll take it as homework.
Okay.
Okay, I think we can move on unless anyone has any other comments. Jenny?
I think maybe a future agenda item could be a fuller conversation about sourcing natives, because I think we put a lot of good ideas out there, but I would love to see a more thorough plan going forward. I think that would be a wonderful possible community outreach or engagement opportunity, as you mentioned. Would want to think that through a little bit more. I'm sure a lot of us have gardens and could do some seed saving. Maybe this is a place for the seed library. I think there's a more to say there, and I would love to get into that at another occasion.
Absolutely. Okay, so next is the Hamden, Hampshire Conservation District Lawn Removal Partnership. Is that from Jamie?
Yeah, I sent that. Somebody, I was just made aware of it. I've done nothing other than look at their website and pass it along to you all so far. So I just happen to have somebody sending me the link. So
any comments on that?
I also looked at the website, but really didn't invest any time in it.
Yeah, it was funny. Someone 2 days after Jamie sent that out, sent it to me also. And I think if the pollinator kits were that they were available in May, so I'm guessing they're gone by now, but it is something useful to keep an eye on and maybe review, see if there's anything about it, just in terms of practice or just collaboration and pointing to it that we can talk about and integrate. Jamie, did you have any more thoughts about it and thank you for bringing that forward, by the way.
yeah, no, I mean, my thoughts were, number one, it's a resource that we might be able to point people towards, because they do seem to be, their mission seems to be to actually help people take the steps at their own homes, sort of thing. So, there's maybe things that we can learn from, or maybe it's worth it to pass people directly to them. The other thing is that maybe it's worth inviting them to one of our meetings, like a representative to one of our meetings, just so we could talk with them about what collaboration would potentially look like, or what things that they're already doing that we could piggyback off of, or I don't know exactly where all their fund. I think in the thing I sent there was some information on where their funding comes from. Right, it's a Mass state agency. So what else? What is their mandate to do with that? And just more to learn about where they came from and what they're already doing, I think.
Yeah, that might be a really great community event too. If it's something that they actually, if representatives from that initiative actually do come to municipalities. I think that, because it seems like basically what they do is, what we're trying to do is educate people about how to plant native gardens in their yard, which I think we've all agreed that no mow May is a misnomer, and we're talking about things like this. That would be an interesting thing to look forward to, I think, prior to next spring. So maybe we could keep this on the agenda and maybe try to figure out, would someone here be willing to try to reach out to them and find out more about opportunities like that? Do they have representatives that would come to speak either at a community event or to a committee like ours?
I'm happy to be the person to take that since I brought it to the group originally. Pardon
Awesome.
the background noise here.
Great.
Sean.
I am starting a document with future agenda items, and I figure I can put dates that we might want to re-pull them up. So what I'll do is I'll put this on for, say, January or February of next year as a time to dip back in, and I'll note that Jamie has volunteered to potentially spearhead it, and then we can add it to the agenda at that time.
I mean, I'm thinking we probably want to talk to people about it around that time so they're prepared for the spring, would be my only input, unless you have another thought. In other words, we have it. Is that what you mean? We can.
Yeah, I'll put it on a thing. I'll put it on, and I'll like touch base with Jamie at that point, and just make sure that we don't, forget about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll reach out in advance of that for sure. I mean, I'll do that sooner rather than later, and just sort of again establish that contact if we can, and like see who's a person there that we should be talking to, or what if there's something that makes sense to put on an agenda item or an agenda sooner rather than later. I can let everybody know about that. So
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, because believe it or not, that's like just a little over 6 months away. If we're talking about late winter, early spring, to have like some sort of community event to basically educate people about what to do with their yards in during the spring growing season. So, Sean, my only recommendation might be to just continue it so we can plan this out over the next few months.
Okay, yeah, I'll put it on the next one then.
Fall is also a really great time to prep for meadow plantings and things like that. So
Agreed. Yeah.
might be sooner rather than later.
Anything else on that? Okay. Without further ado, the Easthampton Climate Action Plan review, and I believe that's you, Cassie.
That's me. So I sent an email around to all different boards and committees and department heads who were named as partners in any of the actions listed in the climate action plan. And that was a request for comments. And hopefully you all got that. I tried to send it to everybody, at least at least to Sean. I think I tried to send it to everybody. But there's a couple of documents in there. One of the documents listed which actions the Bees Committee was written down as being a partner. You might not be solely the group going for it, but just as a partner to the action. And then there was the draft itself listing all the actions. We're very close to being done with the plan. I didn't get any comments from anyone individually, which I think is fine. I guess my question is, do folks get a chance to look at that? Do you have any concerns? The Bees Committee had a lot. They were listed as partners in a lot of different actions compared to other departments, which I think is logical, and it's not meant to be it's all on you. It's not meant to be that at all. It's more just I think you're logical because of the scope of this group, and it's a good group to address a lot of the less energy efficiency piece, but more culture shifting pieces of the action plan. If you want to, we can go through these actions. But I guess I just wanted to start with does anybody generally have any questions about that, or is there any actions that jumped out to you that were that's it, you don't want to do that, or we do want to do that, we're not listed, or anything like that?
I went through the plan a couple times and I sent in my own comments. A little bit off topic. I thought the plan was very well written and well organized, and I thought the biggest thing that the public is likely to have not a problem with, but trip over, and this is universal in communicating ecological needs, is the plan talks about things at a large scale, megatons of carbon equivalent or whatever the units were. Whereas people are more concerned with, well, okay, what can I do this weekend? And helping people draw, if not exact equivalencies, but links there between collective actions and individual actions is important. Along the lines of things that we are listed as partners for, I think that's great. And I think a lot of what bees should think about doing as we develop our resource materials of public information and outreach is, certainly engage as a discussant with other folks. I mean, there's 7 of us, well, 6 of us at the moment. And, you know, we can't do everything. We don't want to come across saying, no, we can't do that. That's not important. But we can certainly say, you know, yes, we've discussed this and this fits into things that we think are priorities. And here are some resources for how to go about things. So I think, you know, again, you know, we're starting out, we're crawling before we walk before we run. And, you know, I'm not sure what stage we're at yet, but it's closer to the beginning. And so I think we should take the approach of, okay, let's develop our resources that can be helpful for the public and how to share those. And I think that's the most obvious and immediate thing that we can do to support the implementation of the climate action plan.
I mean, I'll just quickly, I'll also note that, you know, the things that folks are listed as being groups are listed as being partners for, it's supposed to be like, this is where to go to help try to get this action to happen. But it's not saying that you guys have to do this, have to do that. It could just be like, right now, you don't have the capacity to pursue this.
Yeah.
But it's listed as a thing that, like, in the future, we should strive to have this be a thing that maybe you would have the capacity to get. So what does that mean? Like, bees can come back and be like, we need more people, or we need like a better volunteer base, or we need more support from the city in terms of like a designated, like a staff person or something like that. So I think like, if you see the action here and saying like, oh, we can't do this right now, is very valid. But if you think it's still valid, that's something that you should strive for in the future, then we want to keep it in here. That's like, yeah, we would like to be able to do that someday. And some of these actions, it's more like as an advisory, or like you should be checking in with the bees when you pursue these things, not necessarily that they would do it all. So there's just something to think about too for those actions.
I think that's very much along the lines of what I was trying to express. So.
Yeah.
I have not had a chance to review the plan, and I'm looking forward to doing that. Is there a closure to the comment period?
Well, it's already come and gone,
Okay.
but it's okay. It's that's totally fine, because we still have time, and especially if there was something that's like really big, like we don't like this, or we do like this, or this is missing. We can still do those changes. So like that is okay. But I'm trying to have it finished by July 25th. Is when it should be done, so that I can submit for the climate leader designation, which is another thing. But getting that climate leader designation, in theory, I think it could be a funding source through grants, through that program, to do some of the projects that you guys are interested in. I think very much so. It's much broader spectrum.
Yeah, and a lot of these things are like things where we may have an advisory or partnership role, or just kind of it fits within the scope and role of what we do. It may never come to us, or like we're kind of a pretty broad funneling type of committee where it like at least has a place if it needs to get presented in a public meeting. So Sean.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, I support all of this. I am, very fuzzy on like some of the mechanisms that this might happen by. And I know that in the document there is, to a certain extent, like, or often kind of maybe a lead designated on there, and I don't think we're mostly ever the lead, which I think is unfortunate for the time being, as we are, learning to crawl, appropriate. But if there is another lead designated and we are going to be advisory, like, are they going to reach out to us and like invite us to one of their meetings? Are they going to come to our meetings and give a talk about it? Like, I mean, all of this sounds great. I just don't know how it's actually going to work.
No, that's super valid. If I can, what I envision is that the climate action plan is a tool in multiple ways. One is that we're working on getting a sustainability coordinator, and they would be the one who's kind of like, if we get the climate leader designation, then every 3 years we need to visit all the criteria, and the climate action plan is one of the criteria. So the sustainability coordinator will be kind of like checking in on all these things and pursuing these actions as it seems logical to do so, which means kind of like triaging some of them. But otherwise, in addition to the sustainability coordinator, there would be the department heads themselves. They're named explicitly. A lot of them are planning, a lot of them is DPW, but they would have to be kind of really the lead in pursuing the projects. And then also groups like you guys, like you guys have the pollinator action plan. That's a tool for you guys directly, but this can also be a tool if you're like, which one of these actions do we think is cool, and we want to try to push the city to like do this, and what work can we do to make that happen? Because that's probably how the EAC will be using it, Energy Advisory Committee. They'll be looking at these actions and be like, all right, the next one says that, you know, we like this action right here. Let's go for that. And what do we have to do at the city level as another source of kind of like pushing and driving the thing? But probably the sustainability coordinator would be the main point of contact for any of these items and be like, how can we help you? Or how can we make this happen? Or you should do this. Try to compel them to pull that action up higher. And some of them have more of a description of how to achieve them, and some of them don't. Some of them are more expanded upon than others. But yeah, a lot of them are. It's where I see it like they should be consulting with the Bees Committee as they pursue them, like revitalizing. What's one of them here? 17. That's just looking at one of them.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Infrastructure, like they should be. You guys aren't going to pursue the bike infrastructure increasing, but they should reach out to you guys to be like, well, what will that entail? Like, you guys do a lot of work along the bike path with your managing the invasives. Like, how can we make this supportive that or something like that? You know what I mean? So it's a little ill-defined in some places, but that's it.
And some of these I'm looking are like direct, almost like definitive overlap or verbatim of what we do either as directed in the ordinance for the committee or some of the tasks for the B city. So it might behoove us in regard to this item just to review that and like pull out items that are really distinctly like clear, like definitive B's actions. So I guess maybe once we do get the sustainability coordinator, we can probably send them a letter saying, look, this, and this are like distinctly things that we're already doing. And so how do you want us to prioritize? How do you want us to pursue? That would be a thought. So like some of these, like, you know, developing like urban forestry as well. There's like some gardening stuff. So yeah. Anything else about that?
No, not really. I think that's great. If you guys are willing to try to spend the time to just have that in your minds of like, because my theory, my hope is that we will have a sustainability coordinator with like within some number of months, like it's a matter of months, not years. I don't know exactly how many months that would be, but I know it's going to city council or ordinance committee tonight. I think the agent or the sustainability coordinator position being added to the city ordinances, and then once it goes to the full city council, presumably it would hopefully get approved there. And they can post it, and it might not take very long at all to find a person to fill that position. So if you guys kind of are in a good place to reach out to them and, you know, start working with them, I think that would be great. Also the conservation agent. So that's why you guys are funny, because you have right now, I think it's listed that the agent is the liaison from the planning department as assigned by the planning director. You don't have a planning director now, so it's kind of like it's the agent for now. They would probably be able to work with you, especially because that position, the sustainability coordinator position, is going to exist. Is going to be way more focused on an open space, and so I think they'll be a great source to kind of collaborate on some of these items that are related to what you could potentially do on city-owned open spaces to improve them. So you kind of might have those two people that you'd be looking to working with.
Yeah, and actually just for transparency, there is a public hearing scheduled actually for that position at the August 7th meeting for the city council. So if members of this committee wanted to speak to the need or comment on the addition potentially of that position, that would be a good time too. I could send out some information about that. Anything from either of the two remote participants?
No, sir.
Not for me.
All right. Anything from our other in-person committee members?
Thank you.
Thanks for all your hard work on this.
Oh, yeah, no problem. It's exciting. It's so close to being done. It's like amazing. So I'm excited. But you'll be seeing an email once it's down that you're done. We're gonna try to do some kind of like press release and then yeah.
You are truly leaving a significant legacy behind with all the work you've done. It just in a very brief period of time, we've had this committee. Your contributions have been invaluable. So thank you so much for all the work that you've done.
Thank you. That's really good to hear. That's what I wanted to do. So it's nice. It's exciting to be able to do that. So I'm glad that you guys and the mayor and everybody like gave you a chance to try it. So it's cool. Thank you.
So the city plant list, I sent that out. I mean, basically, and I haven't I started looking through it. I hadn't looked at that in a while. That was a list that I basically put together through collaboration with Native Plant Trust. Cassie helped me with that. I think someone from Mass Autobahn, and I think at the time the tree warded to Sarah Greenleaf. There may have been some other contributors I don't remember because I mean that might have been 2 years ago.
I suppose more.
Yeah.
I like don't remember. I don't know what time it is.
So
Yeah.
so that was a list. I forget, like there was original long list pulled from I have to try to remember what the website was, and we kind of refined it through some local stakeholders to come up with a pretty broad list of a variety of natives, including trees, for the city essentially to adopt, especially as we talk about inclusion of natives only in municipal parcels, whether it be for landscaping or for other things. So that's kind of more an FYI, although part of me does wonder now, even with the brief passage of time, if it warrants review from someone, and I'd have to figure out who. It's only been a couple of years though.
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe just you guys could all review it. I feel like it would be just as valid. You did do quite a wide amount of sources, I think, to make it. So it's very well crafted, but yeah, maybe that would make sense. But I don't know if there's any like super major changes in what's considered native over the past few years, but some of you guys might know better than me.
Yeah, I mean, any comments on that? I mean, I guess eventually we would probably agree to adopt that and have that somewhere as part of our policies that we recommend to the city, especially as we move forward with ordinances. You know, this is the list you can choose from. As again with the street tree conversation, and I know that there's some stuff coming up on tree organization. So it's more an FYI, if there's items that people through their expertise or through people that they're in contact with feel that there's additions or subtractions to that, I think that's valid. And I guess that's really all I have to say about that, but happy to obviously then entertain questions or comments about that.
I don't have anything to offer yet.
Okay, Sean?
Yeah, I figure, I do think the ordinance is really the right place to put it. Obviously, I think we should go ahead and, link it from the city from our website, from our page on the city website. And then, yeah, I think we can probably add like to the top of it that, if folks have disagreements with it, additions or subtractions, that, they could hypothetically just sort of like bring it to B's committee member and or hopefully that's maybe something we should, I don't know, hypothetically put in front of the sustainability coordinator and or the tree warden when we have either of those again, or have either of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we would do, and I mean, I guess this kind of ties in to the work, the conversations that Jenny and I have had about the ordinance. I think as part of that, there would be probably a period of review for that list, just based on climate change and such. And I think, yeah, I agree, that would be attached to the ordinance somewhere. So, yeah. I guess just as a quick update to that too, Jenny and I are continuing to have conversations about really getting into some language, so we can bring that to you at a future date. Anything else on that? Okay. Updates on tree organizations, board and DPW roles, and responsibilities. Like, was that Elodie's?
That was going to be an LED thing, yeah. So I think we're not going to get any updates.
Okay. And then communications, Facebook, email, etc. I know Jamie, thank you. You set up the Facebook page. I would be interested kind of I'm interested. Well, let me turn that over to you. I have some questions.
To me.
Well, about the Facebook page.
Yeah, I just created it just because I could, because not everyone had access to Facebook. So I volunteered to do that. Oh, and I know you're on there as well. So that's why I made you an admin for that. And then, I haven't done any public posting about its existence yet. Shared it to any groups or anything like that. We can talk about if we want to wait till we have at least one piece of content up there, and then maybe that can get shared out to, to different groups when there's something, like that, and that could attract some attention that way. But I'm open to whatever. It's just mostly just to have it in place for now.
Yeah, so like I'm a member of a ton of like native planting, pollinator support groups, and I guess the question from the group in terms of who as admin roles, do people feel comfortable if there's interesting articles just sharing it to there, or do we want to keep it more confined to bees only sourced material, or probably a combination of both? I'd be interested in people's thoughts about that. Anyone? Sean?
Yeah, I think a measured posting of interesting articles and stuff makes sense. I'm not too worried about what gets posted up there. I do think we don't want to flood anything that we post with our events or particular information. So maybe some sort of cadence, like don't post new stuff. Assuming we get like a newsletter going on or an events something going on, maybe don't post for a few days or a week after we post something like germane to something we're actively doing. Obviously, I do think at some point we should start putting like events on a calendar on that group, on that page, whatever we have. And ideally, hopefully, at some point, again, once we have, as Jenny knows, I've identified a bunch of like cross-posting capabilities, although I'm not sure how we're going to get around to getting that set up for Facebook. But if we can get it set up for Facebook, then, when we start having other social media options, again, which I've just been kind of waiting until we have something to tell people about, then we can hypothetically also cross-post to that, or you can like copy post from there. So yeah, that was a long-winded way of saying, yeah, go ahead, go for it, post stuff.
All right, do we want to do, oh, sorry, Jenny.
Just a related question for those of us who don't currently have admin capacity. I'm wondering if there's a good way for us to figure out like a pipeline if we have something that we think would be good. It's like I'm really wary of creating like administrative burden for Jamie and Owen, who have volunteered to be the admins. I come across a ton of stuff that could be good. So I'm just wondering if there's like, I really don't want to get mired down in like creating an editorial calendar and having a review process and like formalizing this, but just like, if I had something, what would be a non-burdensome way to pass that along?
So I can speak for myself, and I'll let Jamie give his thoughts too. I mean, I'm pretty active managing a number of Facebook pages, and so it's for me, it's like it's a complete non-burden.
Okay.
So I would say that I would want consensus from the group. But for instance, if you came across an interesting article, just email me. And I think that Sean makes a good point. We don't want to flood people. I think if we try to keep, like 3 to 4 posts a week, and also try to generate some more committee-related content, I think that makes sense. And we should probably do some sort of like welcome posts sooner rather than later. And then so we could then start providing just other random content. Jamie, what your thoughts?
Yeah, similar. I'm happy to just receive things via email and get them posted. I agree with Jenny. Like, we don't need to overly formalize it and like make it too crazy, but and also with Sean, like we want to space things out a little bit too, right? We don't want to overdo it because that's not necessarily what people would be looking to us for. So I think, a reasonably curated sense of like, a couple things here and there that are interesting. I think a welcome post is a good idea. And then of course, highlighting events and other things like that we're actively doing or what we want to do with that.
I mean, I haven't looked at the page too, Jamie. Is it a group where people could post something and then it just needs admin approval to...
I did not set it up as a group. I set it up like like the committee is the entity to post on it.
Okay.
I mean, it's the way I have the Energy Advisory Committee set up, or I didn't set it up, but it was passed to me that way. So I just did it as that. If we thought doing a group thing might be more engaging, I mean, certainly it does allow people to do more with it. That's a separate, conversation perhaps.
Yeah, I think that a page, like sort of a more broadcast attitude for this is a better idea. And then it sort of wraps up with some of the other stuff, other thoughts we've had about the volunteer orgs. Like if we get going with like a Friends of the Bees or, not just bees or, what various others of the ideas for the non-governmental expression, I think that's a better place for like actual interactive stuff. So I think it is better for this as the official page to be broadcast only for the most part.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I guess the question to the group would be too, like I said, I think I'd like to start seeing some content produced on there. How would people like to formulate? Well, we have to be careful with quorum. Like, do people trust, like, say, Jamie, Sean, and I to kind of draft like an initial post to the page and launch it, so then we can start putting more stuff there? Or would you want? Because the only other way to do it would have to be something approved in a meeting if we wanted more people involved.
I would certainly endorse, the three of you, for example, creating this launch product. I mean, I don't feel a need to be involved in review and editing. So,
Agreed. I'm also happy to support if there's any graphics that would be useful to produce.
Yeah. All right. Sean?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should basically bless, folks as administrators and posters, and we can review. I believe it might even be public enough that we can maybe look at it without having a Facebook login. I don't know, but if we need to, we can have a quick 10-minute review at each monthly meeting or whatever to just go through what's been posted and say, this is good, this is bad, whatever.
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea. I like that. Yeah, sure. I'm just leaving myself a reminder because I'll try to put something together for you two to review over the next, let's say, week, hopefully sooner. Jamie, anything else there? Thanks for setting that up.
No, nothing else. I'll be happy to look over what you have or contribute to putting something together to post. That'll be fine.
Awesome.
And at this point, I'm gonna have to jump off here momentarily. So thanks, y'all.
Okay, we're about to wrap up anyway.
Okay.
So thank Jamie,
Yeah.
thanks so much.
Yeah,
and,
thank you, Jamie.
I'll be in touch.
Yeah, I think we can take a vote and just say you and Jamie are blessed to post what you want, and then we'll review. And if we want to revoke that later, we can revoke that later.
Okay, yeah. So why don't we take a motion then to allow the page admins to post at their discretion with monthly review?
Yep.
I'll take a motion on that.
I will make a motion to say what Owen just said.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay.
I win.
It's a tie. I'm gonna give it to Jenny. And so we'll do a roll call vote. Hal,
Aye.
Jenny, Sean,
Aye.
Jamie, still on?
Aye.
Okay, and I'm also an aye, so that's 5-0 in favor of that proposal. I should have asked if there was any discussion. And obviously there's no nays or abstentions. Okay. Anything else regarding communications?
Yeah, so I think we should, once we get the email going, and I think that's going to be sort of the same sort of thing, is we're going to want, like, anybody who wants from this group that wants access to the email list can have administrative on there. We will generally use that as a broadcast. I do think like a weekly newsletter. I may even, we may even like do a welcome post that reflects what y'all do, what we do for the Facebook one. I think we should just sort of extend that to be kind of the same, quick review monthly. Administrators have discretion to posts on behalf of the group. And then, yeah, again, in the future, we'll have another meeting if I come up with more social media stuff to do. So we'll tack that on if it happens. If and when it happens.
Did you say a weekly newsletter?
What's that?
Did you say a weekly?
No, monthly at most.
Just that seems
But definitely not more than monthly.
or like quarterly even.
Yeah,
Format.
We have to think about comms because there'll probably be some cross posting and
right.
okay, so we should just keep an ongoing discussion about that.
Yeah, so like I said, there are a number of applications which would allow us to cross post to multiple social media things at the same time. Which would also allow us to do things like scheduled posts and some other stuff like that, which would be very nice. But we don't have that yet, and I've been, cooling my heels on actually setting that up until we have more content. So this is a good start for it. But again, if I decide I want to create a Mastodon account or what have you, or Threads or Blue Sky or whatever, we're fairly limited without paying a fairly exorbitant amount of money in most of those cross-posting applications. So we would probably, the first thing I'll do if I decide I want to move forward with it is bring it to the group and see which ones people really, really, really want to be on. And then tell you what the max is for the app that we've chosen. And then we can share the admin creds or whatever. I wanted to, again, it'll have to be shared credentials if we want to do free versions, unfortunately, which sucks, but it is what it is. Yeah, so I think for now, we just say we're going to do email and Facebook, and we try and keep them kind of in sync on big posts or event posts, or like a monthly, no more than monthly newsletter post. And then we'll expand from there as we go.
Any other thoughts on that?
That's good.
Great. Sean, anything else on your end? Because that pretty much wraps up a very even 10 item agenda.
So I was just glancing at the agenda. Okay, so we're going to send out a doodle poll, and then from that, I will create meetings. Is that basically the idea here?
Yeah, I think so. Basically, the question is site visit only, short meeting, then site visit, then longer meeting some other time. I think those are right. I think of those kind of like
yeah.
Okay, and then when? So yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think I'll try and I'll see if I can come up with a doodle poll that more or less encapsulate all of that in one go. Probably, yeah. And then if I can't, maybe I'll try and figure out a double poll, one to do the type of meeting and the other to do the timings. Or we can just decide. I mean, we can't just decide to do the double meeting now. The only issue I have with that is we are going to have to figure out a way to. I mean, maybe since we're not going to have it be remote or anything, we can just vote at the end of the site visit on when we want to set our first volunteer thing for. I mean, I guess technically we have the end of September, so we could just wait to vote for a late August or September meeting. I don't know. I'd still like to get rolling, but. Oh, that's the thing is, like, do we want to just say that, like, now that we have most of the approvals, once we pick the sites, are we okay to say that, like, people that have members of the committee that have sort of volunteered and been read in on our procedures can just set up events and go, or do we want to like have every event come through the committee?
I think it should probably come through the my opinion is it should come through the committee and for the sake of organization and notification, because again, if we're doing things like notifying the DPW about where, and maybe to some degree, maybe just as a courtesy, Concom gets a copy or planning department gets a copy of those things too. It should probably all just come to the committee, because otherwise, I think that could get a little chaotic or run, who knows, run into some issues. So that would be my thought. I don't know what the other folks think.
I think that makes a lot of sense, at least as a starting point. If it turns out we fall into a pattern of like a monthly meeting for a specific site or something like that, then maybe we can reconsider. But I feel like for the initial forays, it's definitely, to my mind, makes sense to come through us, even if that delays the planning a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I do think long term, and again, this I guess comes back to creating or working with a volunteer organization that crops up or whatever. Long term, I think always going through a committee meeting is going to really like stem any enthusiasm we get. Like volunteers are going to want to be able to go do stuff. If we get the sort of like festive environment that I'd like to imagine that we get going on, which we did have both years when we did the Easthampton cleanup day, there was the potential for like, just sort of like rolling enjoyment, sort of like, not ad hoc, but like relatively short schedule things to go out and like do removals. And I would like to be able to harness that energy in the future if we do continue to get that sort of energy. So yes, for the beginning, we can go through the committee, but I do think we need to keep it on our minds that we need to figure out a way to like have a volunteer group that we can empower on these sorts of things in the future.
Yeah, you know what, Sean, you make a good point. I think what we should just do then as a committee is settle on policies and procedures for how the volunteers operate, and say, if you're going to do, like, I'm just throwing it out there, like, okay, if you're going to do a cleanup, you need to do X, Y, and Z. You need to notify, say, the chair of the committee within like 5 days prior to the event, so that they can notify the appropriate city departments. We need to know like location, time, etc. That might work. I think originally it should go to the committee, but now I'm understanding more. When you were saying volunteers, I wasn't clicking at first. I was thinking just like any random person for the committee, but we're trying to recruit a volunteer base. So that could probably work if the other.
And I will say, as part of the list, I think that at least for the foreseeable future, part of it probably should be a committee member should be there, like one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And for everything, obviously, part of the procedures is report back to the committee the before, after, and we have all the documentation, all that other jazz. I think that needs to be part of it. But yeah. So I mean, I don't think we need to decide this right now, but this is something that I think we should try and decide probably like at the next meeting.
Mm-hmm. Jenny?
Just thinking about this further, that sounds great, and I could see this getting like very routinized with like sort of your checklist, your like list of supplies, your roles for people to take. So I'll be excited to see this thing off the ground, and I don't mean to be dragging it out further. I just want to make sure that we're doing it thoughtfully the first couple times until we get into a functional routine.
And I'm on board. That's very constructive.
Mm-hmm.
And just for purposes of meetings, I'm typing as rapidly as I can. You people think faster than you talk, and you talk faster than I can type, and everything is reticulate. So just bear that in mind as you look at whatever draft I send out. So
Thank you.
I mean, as per usual, I know we don't take advantage of this, but if anybody has additions or corrections, we can absorb those.
oh, absolutely, yes, and I invite those. I'm just
As do we all. Yeah. I'm reminding everybody else we can send in corrections as well if there's something we think we can.
Yeah, you don't have to be super specific too. I mean, you could just summarize the discussion and like something that's made.
that's kind of what you're going to get.
Okay. Anything else from anyone?
What? Can we go through? I know I have an action item, a couple of action items. I know I'm supposed to send out polling about the next meeting. And I feel like there was at least one other thing that I said I was going to do. And then I know there was a couple of things other people said they were going to do. Do we have?
I think I've answered those in the notes. I don't have them that I can produce a concise list right quick.
Okay.
I will get draft minutes out as, within the next few days, and then look for what you're thinking of and then point out anything that you feel is missing.
Yeah, the one thing also was, I had potentially, Owen and or myself to pull out, top priorities from the climate action plan for discussion at the next, probably full meeting, if we end up with a split site visit meeting. Probably not that one, but the one after that, in that case.
I'm happy to do that. I don't think I have any
Yeah.
significant assignments.
She was going to maybe think about a Google Drive folder for a playbook for future events.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I had volunteered to do that, although I'm happy to pass it if you want to. I'll do it. It's no big deal.
Since identified as a need, I can take that on. There's the idea of a sign for the DPW spot and a sign to designate management sites. I can try to pull together a little draft of those if that's helpful.
That would be lovely.
Sean's going to send the removal management plan around again.
I sent the folder around again. I haven't set the management plan, but I can do that. Or folks can try and find the management plan and let me know if they can't. But I did send the folder around already.
All right, anything else that we're forgetting, or are we pretty much wrapped up?
I think we've hit all the high points.
We are, once again, thank you for helping us out with all this.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Cass.
Cassie, we missed everything Owen said earlier and then some. I was nodding along, but again, I didn't want to deal with the down angle on my, it was just not great. So, and poor lighting. I look like a zombie, basically, is what I'm saying.
Well, I want to say thank you all, and I want to mark for the record that you guys have so much like potential as a group. It's like nice to have like people who are dedicated, and like this group, its scope is so broad. Like I wish if Jamie was still here, he could tell you like they don't issue permits, they don't have like authority over things, but even just as an advocacy group, they do a lot. So you guys could do even more. Like I just think you have a lot of really awesome potential. So I'm so glad that this group exists and that such awesome people are on it. But I'm glad I could be a part of it in the beginning. Which is cool to see. Even just a group forming is really cool. So thank you all. It's been awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, on that note, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion from Sean, second from Hal. I'll take a roll call. Hal.
Aye.
Jenny. Sean.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Any, all right. Then the meeting is adjourned at 7:06.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.